It is Monday, February 3, 2025. I'm your host, Allison Donahue, brought to you by the Grand Rapids Community Media Center. This live TV program offers the community the chance to hear from and ask questions directly to our local city officials, like our guest today, the newest First Ward Commissioner AliciaMarie Belchak. You'll hear from her later in the show with the opportunity to ask her questions. If you're watching live and want to join in on the conversation, send an email at cityconnection@grcmc.org or go to our @TheRapidian Instagram page and submit questions through our story. Now let's get into what's new here in Grand Rapids. At the latest Grand Rapids Public Schools Board of Education meeting, the conversation got heated as the board discussed its response to federal immigration enforcement and community concerns about protecting undocumented students and families. Residents demanded GRPS take a stronger stance against ICE. Many called for the district to officially declare itself a sanctuary, prohibit staff from contacting ICE, and create visible protections such as signage. Students shared personal stories of living in fear of deportation, and community leaders emphasized trauma and instability around enforcement actions. During the board's discussion, trustees clashed over next steps. One trustee, Jose Rodriguez, advocated for a formal resolution stating that the district opposes ICE in operations in schools. However, Kimberly Williams and other members raised concerns about the limit of the board's authority and potential misinterpretation of the term sanctuary, and the risk of jeopardizing district funding. After an extended debate, the board voted to establish an advisory committee to review and refine policies that protect marginalized families in the district, and they also worked together to draft a public statement reaffirming their commitment to student safety. For more detailed rundown on this meeting and other Grand Rapids public meetings, visit grandrapids-mi.documenters.org/reporting. A similar conversation happened on Tuesday, January 28 at the City Commission meeting. Hundreds of people attended the meeting to urge city officials to grant the city sanctuary city status. City leaders largely had the same concerns that GRPS board members had, that calling Grand Rapids a sanctuary city would give a false sense of protection for undocumented families. GRPD Chief Eric Winstrom also said there's a risk of, quote, painting a target on yourself, unquote, for the federal government. Mayor David LeGrand said city leaders have, quote, an obligation to speak out on this issue in moral terms and do everything in our power to respect, honor, and support the members of our community, unquote. As news around these issues develop, it is important to make sure you are fact-checking your sources before spreading what could potentially be misinformation and further stoking fear in our community. In other community news, the City of Grand Rapids and Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. have released new renderings for the Oxford Trail Rehabilitation and Extension Project that will create a linear park space in the Black Hills neighborhood, eventually linking to Roosevelt Park and Plaster Creek. This marks the first major investment in the trail since 2011 and is part of the larger Grand River Greenway project, backed by an $8 million investment from DGRI funds and an additional $1 million from the city. To ensure the design reflects local priorities, the city hired 7 neighborhood leaders to guide engagement efforts, which included over 100 residents participating through trail walks, community events, door-to-door canvassing, and multilingual outreach in Spanish, Swahili, Kinyarwanda, and English. That's it for city updates. When we come back from the break, we will be joined by First Ward Commissioner AliciaMarie Belchak to get to know her and to hear what's going on in the First Ward. Welcome back to City Connection. I'm your host, Allison Donahue, joined by First Ward Commissioner AliciaMarie Belchak. Hi, welcome to our show today.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, well, you're kind of new to the position. It's only been a month and a week, maybe?
I would call it a month. I feel like I hit the ground running right after the election. The city staff and the manager had us in meetings and behind the scenes, and we sat in on work sessions, and I went to a lot of meetings, which I always watched anyway online. You can always watch the city commission meetings on YouTube and on Facebook. They're streamed live, but great way to watch it, washing dishes or whatever else you have to do around the house. So I feel like I was involved right away, but officially as of January 1st, I took my official seat, got my access to my email on January 3rd. So I guess we could just mention now that I am open, and I would love it if you have any thoughts, ideas, ways to make the city better. Happy to hear your complaints as well, but let's work together to make it a better place with some ideas. Anything and everything, you can email me at abelchak@grcity.us. So yeah, I'm into my email now and doing the real work, and had 2 meetings now, so.
So you are new to representing the 1st Ward. What brought you to this role?
That's a great question. So I'm the working mom candidate. I ran so that I could make the community as best as it can be and build long-term sustainability, affordability, business growth, safe, clean, healthy streets, and neighborhoods for my kids who are the 3rd generation of First Ward residents, and for everybody who lives here. I think that we live in extraordinary and challenging times. I think that we're on the cusp of new things emerging, and it's up to us to make those things happen. And if not me, who? If not now, when? And I would like to think that I can be an avatar, but also a voice and a bridge builder to really represent the working class and what we need to bring to our city. And I'd love to empower everybody to do their best and be leaders wherever they're at.
I'm sure for a lot of folks watching, this is their first time meeting you.
I hope so. I hope it isn't the last.
So what is one thing that you want folks to know about you as, now that you're a city leader? What should people know about AliciaMarie Belchak?
Well, I've been told I'm very gregarious, and I like colors, I like gardening, I like people. But I really like watching people grow and change. And I've been watching for the last 30 years how our city has been growing and developing. And something that I really think that we all should think about is that we are GR. I know that's a phrase that has been used around town for little newspaper and stuff, but like who is responsible for this town? Is it just elected officials? Is it hired staff? Is it the business owners? Is it the community? And when I say community, I want to be really clear. There's lots of different kinds of community. So which part are you coming from? We need to think of it as all of ours. And so if I can be the bridge for that, that's what I want to do. I have a bit of a background in environmental science and chemistry. I went to Aquinas College in the 90s, and then I went off to New York City and had my chance to do journalism at Columbia University and cut my teeth in the pre-2001 world when everything changed. And I, as an adult, have gone through like the Enron and .com bubble. I've gone through the housing bubble. I've gone through the COVID bubble. And I don't know what's next, but I have grown up and worked with a lot of uncertainty. And I also have a life coaching certificate, and like to help people, empower them with leadership, because learning to navigate uncertainty is what makes us really strong and resilient, and I think it's what's called for. I really want to compliment the community, the voters this past year. I really believe it's been really a dour time for a lot of people I've talked to, but I really believe that the voters voted in the right people at the right time in this city commission. So I hope that that is something we can live up to. And we're just people, we're gonna be fallible and we're gonna make mistakes, but I'm here for it. I'm here to hear all of it.
So what's one thing that you've learned since taking this position that you weren't necessarily expecting when you were elected in November?
So the immediate thing I learned watching those first few meetings after the election is how much expectation is out there among all of you people watching or not watching, the community, the people who show up and say, please, let our new commissioners, let our new folks weigh in on topics. And so I immediately was aware of the responsibility. I want to say burden, but it's not a burden, it's a joyful burden to carry. Like there's high expectations, and it's a bit daunting, right, to live up to those
As
expectations.
the fresh voice.
Yeah, as a fresh voice, as a out of the box, the dark horse candidate, whatever you want to call it. You know, the first woman to be elected in the first ward, like breaking glass ceilings is still a thing.
Yeah.
And how do we navigate that? So there's a lot of expectation, and coming into the role new, there's a lot of way it's been done and how it used to be, and expectations on the city side and the manager side, and just lots of expectations of like, this is how we're used to doing things. And someone called me a disruptor recently, and I really balked at that because I'm like, I'm not a disruptor. But then I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, oh, well, just by virtue of sitting in that seat and being a different set of eyes, a different set of ears, a different voice, I'm just asking questions, and already, you know, changes are happening and things behind the scenes. So that's one thing. And then the last thing I'll say on that is that, especially with the conversations we've had in the last couple of weeks that the community's been coming out for, is that they're like learning where the levers are. Where are the controls? Where are the powers? You know, just because I'm elected doesn't mean all of a sudden I have all this access to power.
Right.
There's a perception about that. So learning where can we make a difference? Where can we have power? What can we do? And sometimes the simple choice isn't always the best choice or the right choice, because I have a duty to think about a lot of aspects and a lot of things that I'm still learning about. So there you go.
One of those topics that recently came up in a city commission meeting is that conversation that I mentioned earlier on in the show about folks came to city commission on Tuesday asking to have the city commission declare Grand Rapids a sanctuary city. But as mentioned earlier, that didn't necessarily happen, and there were a few reasons. One being that it gives this false sense of protection for folks. But I wanted to ask you, what was it like being in that room? I know that some of the public comments were emotional or powerful, but yeah, being up now at the dais, how does it feel being in that conversation?
It is different. A little bit, being on the other side and in the bright lights, but mostly my sincerest wish and hope is that I'm just being present and truly open to listening and receiving. And I took a lot of notes. I tried to make notes about different people and different thoughts. And I wasn't really prepared to make comment, even though I was called on first by Mayor LeGrand. So I was a little distracted in my thoughts, but what I heard was, we care. There are people who are worried, that are concerned. We have real issues out there, and we have real people's lives being affected. And it's about, again, I go back to like, how can we care for our neighbors? How can we show up for people that maybe are outside of our normal bubble? Can we check on the people down the street? Have we shoveled their sidewalk or do they need help? Are they afraid to go out? And it doesn't have to be because you are a migrant or not. You are a resident of Grand Rapids. It could be the elderly. It could be the mom who's struggling down the end of the street. You know, we need to come together and look out for each other. And some of what I heard in that meeting was that's what they were calling on. And so I don't have the answers, but I do know that we have two really good policies put in place well before I ever came into this role. And we discussed those and tried to be proactive ahead of time by bringing them to the public, because we were getting thousands of emails. It was very interesting to me on the other side of a campaign as a former community organizer and sort of activist. It's like, well, here you are sending out messages to legislators, but on the other side, I have no staff. It's just me. Yeah. So, like, being able to sort through and be able to do my job to find the emails that also are one-offs and not all the same. So I had to learn to get that. I would say I'm at about almost 4,000 emails just on the campaign side. So I want people to know I hear them. And they're coming from everywhere. They're coming from Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, Wisconsin, other places than like Grand Rapids. And it's really important that as a governing official, I look for and listen to the stories of the people who are actually living here, because they are the ones that have ideas that are going to make the city better. And can I put a plug in for Mayor's Monday right here?
Please.
Because that's why we're doing Mayor's Mondays, is so that it's a two-way conversation, a two-way street. And Mayor LeGrand has set those up. You can go to mayorsmondays.com to find out. There's one tonight, at 5:30, or is it 6:30?
5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit more about those. My understanding, it was the mayor's response to the fact that usually the commissioners can't respond during, like when the folks bring issues to the public comment section. And it's frustrating for the public to have the commission just sit there while they're talking to, but that is typically the policy. So I think it's interesting that the board did respond to this Tuesday meeting.
We're trying to be more vocal. I think the new folks, myself, I think Commissioner Kilgore, we come to this with a proactive approach that we want to make sure people know we're hearing them, and we don't want to just have it be a 30-minute meeting. I mean, don't want it to be a 4-hour meeting every time either, but we want people to know we're thinking, we're hearing, we're reacting, but I also want to encourage people that there are other places to plug in beyond the public comment section. We've got committees and commissions. There's the Planning Commission, the Public Safety Committee, the Housing Board, GR Mobile. There's all these other places. Sometimes they have public comment time, sometimes they don't. But just showing up or watching those videos on YouTube and other places is important, because that's where some of this work is like working and then filtering its way up to where the whole commission looks at it. And the other place, of course, is reaching out by email and one-on-one. I'm trying to meet with as many people and groups as possible. That's kind of my goal for first quarter. And then building these systems. We don't have a constituent response system other than the 311 system, which is really for problems. Am I talking too much? And yeah, I just want to see us do better with constituent resident communications, and that includes in the community where people are at. And that's why Mayor Mondays matter, because I can't have the ideas, the mayor's not going to have the ideas, but together we might have the ideas. So there you go.
So let's talk a little bit about the first ward. What would you say are some of the bigger challenges facing the first ward right now? And if you had to pick one major priority for the next 2 years, what would you pick?
Wow, that's a tough question, right? One priority.
And you've got to stick to it too, because you're promising here.
I'm making promises by accident. So the big topic besides safety and security, which means funding our police, our fire, our public safety people, and expanding co-response mental health models and things like that, which is one bucket. We also have the huge bucket of housing and affordability and accessibility to make sure that we have what we need, not just for the first ward, but across the city. And then the third thing I would think about would be resiliency and sustainability. How can we build infrastructure, redo infrastructure if we have to, so that we're thinking far into the future, not just what do we need now, but what is it going to be in 20 or 30 or 40 years? Like, we don't want something, God forbid, like LA to happen here. The heat sinks that we have by just the fact that we have lots of buildings and concrete and things like that. What can we do about air pollution so that we breathe healthier air, and particularly in certain neighborhoods, that's a real concern. So some of the things I've been working on just this last month is I've been meeting with different developers, and I'm really happy to kind of like put a couple up for examples. We've got the Kent County Habitat folks who are building a 27 unit like buildings and up there in off of Granville Avenue kind of area, and they have this beautiful view facing north towards downtown off of this big hill.
Oh, yeah. That is a really nice.
And so they're going to be building like townhomes. They're also going to be building some apartment units. They've started bringing buildings down that they need to around that area. And this is an example where they are specifically working on housing for people who are working class and workforce kind of housing. And so people who want to have a good view of the city, you don't have to just live downtown and be someone who's a little wealthier. You can also live on this beautiful hill, have a good view. And so I'm very excited about that project and continue to encourage people to look about that. And then right here over on Bridge Street, we have a mid-fill kind of infill developer building 150 unit apartments They've tore down Dufflers, and they are going to put these up, and they're going to be market rate, but they're going to fit in with the neighborhood here on Bridge Street and all the excitement we have around beer. I call it Beer Street for fun. And it's going to have green infrastructure. It's going to be LEED certified. It's going to have solar. It's going to have a rooftop deck. It's going to have EV charging. So I'm excited about, these are the kinds of visionary things. And I think that there's some opportunity that's going to be happening along West Fulton as well for housing and development for retail and things like that. That's going to really expand. So we have to get used to the idea that we are a very fast growing ward, and that people want to come to Grand Rapids. And right now, the focus of developers are here. So how can we encourage them to do it in a way that the community, the neighbors, are going to be happy with?
Yeah, how would you say, in the first word specifically, how would you say to strike that balance between bringing in new developments and preserving this area's like cultures, multiple cultures really here on the west side, and characters of the west side?
I think,
the first ward. Really.
Yeah, the first ward. Let's remember that the first ward goes all the way down to 28th Street.
Right.
We have parts of Elger Heights, Garfield Park neighborhood, Roosevelt Park neighborhood, Black Hills, and then of course the west side. And so there is really a diversity of culture and diversity of people, languages spoken, all sorts of things. And I don't have a really clear answer, but I know for myself as a resident who lives I live in the 1850 city boundary here near the Y. So it's really important to me that as we see downtown move our direction, or we think of infill development, it could look like ADUs, which are those accessory dwelling units that were recently approved by right in the city code last summer. That's where you can turn a garage into your, in-law or other rental.
Suites.
Yeah, exactly. And so we need to make that simpler and quicker and more efficient for regular people to manage, because that's a stream of income, and it helps solve the affordable housing problems. We also need to look at where are people. So instead of we need to build, and we need to encourage architecture to look like and be reflective of the community that they are building around. And that's something that we haven't really done here in the city, and I would like to see more. That's partly why I want to connect with more developers, and just anything I can say, this is where planning commission or city commission public hearings matter, because you're like, I like the idea, but could you just, not make it so boxy, maybe put a peak on it somewhere so it like goes with the neighborhood. These are things to think about. And I would also encourage anyone who knows of property that's just sitting there empty because of the absent landlord hasn't been remodeling it. I know of 2 on my own block that the landlord, property owner, however you want to look at it, lives in Holland. And better or worse, they ran out of funds or what, I don't know the story, but I know that there sits a house that could be habitat for somebody. So, I don't know, let's think about it together as a community.
Yeah. Before we go into another break, I know that you were able to attend the Giant Among Giants award show.
Oh, yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I would love.
This was my first time being in a room like this, so I'm just going to hold it up because I thought that the GRCC committee did a really great job on putting the program together. It was the 42nd annual awards, and in an era where we are forgetting how much work is already being done out there, and that there's some chaos in other areas of our world. Something like this was really reaffirming, because this is recognizing all the people from whether they're pastors to activists to HR people, and all the way up to our Giant of Giants award for 2025, which they always make a blank little surprise, was announced to be Clee Jackson, is that his last name, for the the NAACP here in town. And so I just think it's really fitting to remember that there are lots of people doing really good work, and how do we make sure that is, first of all, congratulations to everybody who works on this stuff and got recognized, because it's such a big deal, but how do we also remember that we got to keep doing the elbow grease, because it's not going to get better if we don't make it. If not us, who?
Right. But it's nice to have a nice little booklet of all the great leaders here in Grand Rapids. One last thing before we sign this off. you talked about some of those other meetings outside of City Commission. What are some of the boards that you sit on now?
Oh, yes, thank you. So as a commissioner, this is another surprise. Like you like think, oh, you just show up to commission. No, you do a lot more things. It's really like I'm doing a full-time job and part-time.
As a part-time.
Yeah, and I have the luxury right now to be able to be the working mom that does that. But so I sit on several standing committees. So the Community Development Committee for the commission, the Committee of the Whole, Asset and Michigan Works Committee for the county, and the governing board, the Kent County Action Governing Board, which they do a lot of different things. I haven't yet met with them, so I'll be interested in that. And I also sit on the South Division Granville Avenue CIA, which is a corridor improvement authority. They actually collect taxes from businesses so that we can reinvest in the community corridor to have more business infrastructure, facade improvement, things like that. So
if the city wants, or the residents want to follow along on more work that you're working on, those are open to the public?
Absolutely. People need to come if you can come, and if you can't come, I will plug you guys. I mean, the Rapidian does a great job, and the documenters that show up places to make record of things is very important. Local, hyper-local is what we need.
Yeah, and all of those meetings are available on the city website. Other ways to get in touch with you or learn more about the work you're doing?
Well, you can definitely email me at, like we said, abelchak@grcity.us. I do have a Facebook page. I have an Instagram page still left over. Those are all Vote Belchak. I'll eventually work on a newsletter. So if you email me, please let me know you want to be on the newsletter. I'll get that put together. And if there's a place I should show up and be, and you'd like to have me be a part of the community conversation, send me an invite. I'm ready.
And City Connect is the city's
Yes,
newsletter
that's
as
right.
well?
Thank you. So you can watch all of the streaming on YouTube and whatnot, and you can also sign up for City Connect, Commission Connect, I think it's called. GR Mobile has a newsletter. There's a lot of things to get connected to.
Great. Well, it is time for us now to take another break. When we return, we will be answering questions from viewers like you. To take part in the conversation, send a question to cityconnection@grcmc.org or on the Rapidian's Instagram story. Welcome back to City Connection. It's February 3, 2025, and we're joined by First Ward Commissioner AliciaMarie Belchak. In this portion of the program, we'll be taking questions from viewers, starting with Hog from Hog PhD on Reddit. Can you address Grand Rapids' needs for high-speed rail through its metro, urban, and suburban areas?
First of all, hello, Reddit. Thank you for chiming in. I sent a message out to my Redditors to let them know this was happening. So, yay, right?
Love interaction.
So, high-speed rail is a great idea and definitely something that would be a perfect thing to connect us as we sit between Chicago and Detroit. I would really like to see us think about this as a statewide issue, and I think that that's where a lot of the emphasis needs to be, because there's a huge amount of investment that needs to be done. It has been something that has been floated over and over again and hasn't really gotten traction. Some of it is development, some of it is space, some of it is what do we do with the cars, and I know that our mayor is very much into walkable, bikeable community. But I would like to add to that we need to think about public transportation in general, whether it's rail or better busing or other things. There's a lot of emphasis so far has been put on the first mile, last mile, but if we do transportation right, I personally think there's no need to worry about any mile because it's all been covered.
What does first mile, last mile mean?
Exactly. So this is a term that's used to think about, okay, we're taking a bus from here to here, but it doesn't get us all the way. So how do we do that to the next stop? Like, I talk to people who walk, they work at the Van Andel, they get done working, the bus drops them off somewhere on Bridge, but they still have to walk all the way up the big hill or something. It happens in other parts of the community too. So how do we get people from that last little bit to home or that last little bit to work? And so that's why they've put emphasis on the Lime scooters and the bikes, and they've also now got the GR, I forget what it's called, but the little
car share?
Yeah, the car share, which is actually really great if you don't have a car and you want to go to Meyer and shop, or you want to take it all the way to Lansing or Kalamazoo, whatever, that's electric vehicles, so that's really great. And there's test place right over here on Fulton where you can rent a car. There's an app you can download. You have to be a driver, accept the liability, things like that. But these are all things meant to fill a gap. If we had busing and the ability to have busing or other transportation that does regular routes that are reliable, timely, not coming early and then missing it, or coming too late and then you're missing it, that would be great. And what we don't think about often is that the Rapid is not owned by the city. It is actually another entity that the city works with. We own the Dash, though, and that is why we offer it for free and why it has expanded. So there might be opportunity to expand the Dash. At least I would like to see that. We will see what happens, but that would be really great if we could expand that, especially as we're thinking about not just tourism, but how locals get to work, how do we get to the coffee shops we love, how do we help retailers, and we definitely have a need for it. We've got 2 new big infrastructure projects with the amphitheater and the soccer stadium, so there will be congestion, unfortunately, and we will need better ways for pedestrians to get around from point A to point B.
Might not be a high-speed.
Might not be high-speed rail, but it is interesting to think about. Someone pointed out this to me that I would need someone to fact check. Redditors, you ready? That Grand Rapids, about 26 square miles, is about the same size as Paris. So think about that. If you've ever been to Paris, how that feels to travel around.
I also can't fact check that myself, but cool.
We'll find out later.
Another question comes from Sean. Sean says, I've worked in the city full-time for 5 years in a couple of different positions, but I can't afford to move into Grand Rapids, rent or buy. I've never seen rent go down in that time and don't see a way I will ever afford this luxury. Is it possible for rent to go down?
So the simple answer is yes. It is possible for rent to go down. Rent goes down based on market supply and demand, et cetera. At least that's what the economists want us to hear. It also goes down when landlords are just willing to not charge whatever market rate is, the highest rate that we can get. And there are landlords out there like that. You might have to look in older neighborhoods. You might have to look at the mom and pops or the people who are co-opt kind of sharing. Excuse me, got a little dust in my throat. And it will go down when we have more housing built. So it's hard to see things like Fulton and Market get built, which will be coming online.
That's the 3 Towers project that a lot of folks know it as.
Sorry, your question got me. The truth is, rent didn't used to be this high. When I first owned my very first home here over by Sibley, it's a duplex. Gosh.
Do you need more water?
I am good. Okay. Why don't you
I'll talk for a second.
For a minute.
So the question is about living in Grand Rapids, trying to pay rent here. I know I'm always looking for 1 2-bedroom apartments, and it's tough to find things in a reasonable pay range that wouldn't be over 30% income, which I know a lot of folks, that's the range they're looking for.
So affordability and accessibility is what I'm looking at as a commissioner. And I'm really sorry that my voice is being weird right now. But it is possible for rent to go down. It is going to happen when we have enough people moving who can afford, if you've got a decent job and you can afford to move to a nicer place. As we build nicer places like Fulton and Market, the theory is people will move up and then move down. It'll like move the boxes around, right? You know, like those little squares. And there's actual data and statistics to say that this actually does happen. And I can refer you to a great gentleman who has a little Substack on it and everything if you really want to get into it. Local guy. But the other thing we need to think about is how can we help people who want to buy houses get into homes? And I love that you're working in the city and you want to live in the city. That's actually a really big deal for me personally. I know that a lot of people who work for the city, because we have, 1,500 employees or something like that, they don't live in the city. So there's the impression that you're doing work or making decisions for people that you're not even going to have to live with. So that's always, I think anyone who works for the city and wants to move into the city, we should make that possible. So a shout out to you for wanting to do that, and also to encourage you to reach out to your HR department here in the city, because I know there's programs to help you do that. And we actually have programs to help first-time home buyers in the city too. So things to explore, look at. If you have questions, again, you can email me, you can go to the city website. We'll try to figure it out together.
Yeah, I know. My best friend was actually able to buy her house because of a HR. She found out her work gave a first-time home buyer deal.
Yeah.
So, another question. I can't see the top of the question. There we go. This question comes from Herb. There are a lot of migrants that live in the First Ward, both legal and illegal. Are the GRPD or the City of Grand Rapids going to cooperate with ICE if there are local raids?
Well, hello, Herb. And if you're the Herb I think I know, hello. Maybe you're a different Herb, I don't know. So we spent a lot of time at the last commission meeting addressing this issue, and we are still receiving emails and phone calls daily about this. We're very aware, and the mayor has said it very clearly, that this is a moral obligation to make sure people are safe and feel secure. It is a moral obligation for us to do whatever we can. However, there's only so much the city can do, and those things we've already done. And I'm very proud to say, in 2017 and 2019, other city commissioners and staff have put together policies in place. So we have a GRPD policy on dealing with foreign nationals that specifically says there's no need to inquire about immigration status, and that to do their job, the police chief has said, I'm not here to do ICE's job. So there's that. The second thing is that we have a policy in place from the commission side that says all staff and elected officials are not to inquire about immigration unless it specifically is required for whatever particular federal thing that needs to be done, like a passport, right? But other than that, we are not to inquire or be a part of that, because this isn't about whether you came here or how you got here at this time. From the Grand Rapids standpoint, we are a city where everybody should be working together to live together, and it would be nice if everyone followed all the rules, but as you know, we don't all follow all the rules. I myself sometimes find myself speeding a little bit accidentally or whatever. We all break a rule here or there, so this is my personal stance on it. I'll probably get in trouble. I'll probably get some hate mail. But the mayor said it really well. You know, there's no paper or passport or documentation that says you're a Grand Rapidian. I don't have one, you don't have one, nobody has one. So if we want to support each other, I think it's really going back to what I said earlier about community, connection, checking in on your neighbors, knowing who's who belongs, who doesn't, how do we do what needs to be done. And I don't have good answers. I just know that it's up to us to work at the community level.
I appreciate that. I believe it's time for us to go to break now. When we get back, we'll be taking more questions from viewers like you. If you want to take part in the questions or in the conversation, feel free to send in a question. Welcome back to City Connection. We're joined by First Ward Commissioner AliciaMarie Belchak, taking some more questions from the public. And I believe we have a question from Kyla. I have to say, this is a little more fun than I even expected.
Good.
I'm glad.
Thank you, everyone, for calling in or writing in and working together.
I heard you have a special viewer
right. And thank you. I got to give a shout out. My son, Liam Milzarski, texted me to say I'm doing a great job. So if you disagree or agree, I don't know, find me on Reddit and tell me all about it.
Hi, Liam.
Hi, Liam.
A question from Kyla. Kyla asks, is GR doing anything to encourage electric vehicles? I'm looking at getting one, but my work is about 30, I think.
Probably minutes, miles.
Minutes or miles. But let's answer the question, is GR, 30-minute walk from the nearest charging station, is GR doing anything for electric vehicles?
We want to. I mean, the current commission and most of us, I think, and certainly the mayor has mentioned many times that we need better infrastructure and we need to find ways to invest in it, that we need high quality, fast, multi-port charging, and we probably maybe only need 10 to 15 of them in the city as a whole to be close enough, because again, these are places where you can like have up to 7 or 10 cars charging and then they only take like, I don't know, 20 minutes or less, so that you don't have to spend all day there. So it's very different than like the apartment unit or the condo that might have a plug-in, which there are some around the city. And that's why I'm excited about the Bridge Street development that's coming, because that's going to have charging stations in their parking. But yeah, it's something we're going to need to work on in terms of both planning, site location, infrastructure, funding. I mean, it could cost quite a bit of money. I don't have any dollar amounts off the top of my head, but that is something, and I want you to know that we are definitely working on that, Kyla, because 30-minute walk, while it's good exercise, is not something you maybe want to do every day, but it is also something that we can continue working on. So if you've got ideas about where they should go, or if we should continue working on that project, again, that's going to be a GR mobile thing to bring up at their commission meetings. There's a committee, there's a board, and we are trying to fill lots of boards, by the way. So if you want to, go on the city site and let me know as well when you put in your application. And I'd love to meet with anyone who wants to help make the city better.
I know there was some news last month that Biden had allocated some money to Grand Rapids for EV charging ports, but I don't have the number on the top of my head. So
yeah, and then what happens with all of the current freeze on things? We don't know. Right. We're figuring things out. So we will continue to work on that.
A question from Aubrey through Instagram. What do you think the city can do to protect its most marginalized communities?
Hi, Aubrey. I really appreciate you thinking about the people who might be most impacted by things going on in the world. I have strong confidence in the way that we currently have our policies, which I've mentioned, and I feel very strongly that the conversations I've had with our police chief indicate that he also believes it's not our job to interfere in terms of like helping. But the marginalized communities could include other people besides the immigration status. It could include BIPOC communities. It could include people like, even in my neighborhood is a federally designated low-income neighborhood. So there's a lot of different ways people can feel disenfranchised or marginalized or not able to participate in the economic growth that has been happening in the city. So I want to just push back only on one thing, and that is, what do you think the city can do? I really would like us to think about all of us being the city. And that's a very big mind shift from the city and the government officials doing something for us. But what can we do together? If I'm just a regular working mom who decided to run for office and now I'm sitting in this seat, I'm bringing my voice in a new way and I'm listening. So if you've got ideas, that's what the Mayor's Mondays, that's what my email's for, that's what the community conversation is for. I think that it's going to come down to how can we help our neighbors the most by being the people we want to be showing up for them.
Yeah, I keep hearing in conversations this need to go down to that community neighbor level and take care of folks. And people are always saying, like, go knock on your neighbor's door and see what they need. And I know a lot of folks might feel nervous about just going up to their neighbor's house. It's not what we're used to doing anymore. So my advice for getting to know your neighborhood or your neighbors is going to a neighborhood association meeting.
Yeah, we have great neighborhood associations all across the city. And in the first ward, I've been participating with the West Grand Neighborhood Organization, which I used to be a board member on. There's the Garfield Park Neighborhood Association, there's the Roosevelt Park Neighborhood Association, and we have a Heartside Business Association and a Heartside Neighborhood Association. So I can't emphasize enough, like it's kind of old school, but go back to that model of Mr. Rogers. And like, how do I know what more than just talking like hi, bye, like hello, what do you need? Do you need a gallon of milk? Where do I feel comfortable? If there was a fire in my house, do my kids know it's okay to go to the neighbor's house and make a phone call? There's a lot of thinking that we just haven't really done because we become so siloed after social media and after COVID. And so this is why I'm really pushing back. Community connection. Isn't that what we're doing here?
This one's called City Connection.
City Connection?
Yeah.
So, Aubrey, thank you for your question. Well, I'll be happy to hear from you directly what ideas you have.
Another question's coming to us from folks on Instagram. Chelsea asks, why is the city of Grand Rapids not doing anything to limit the number of properties a rental company can own?
Wow, that's a great question, because it's so easy. This is, again, one of those, like, it seems so simple. Why don't we do rent control? Why don't we do this? It's not as simple, because I'm going to say something that you're probably going to hate hearing. Last I checked, we're still in a free country. And that means that an individual who owns property has a right to own as much property as they can afford, whether we like it or not. Now, if you're really talking about like commercialized large companies that are owning property, we do need to think about that. The West Grand Neighborhood Organization knows for a fact that that part of town is like over 50% rentals, and they're more and more being owned by companies. We don't need that, because that puts pressure on the housing market that we already are feeling. But there's also some misconnect, because when I did the census, I did a lot of knocking on doors in 2020. And I learned that there's a lot of mom and pop landlords. And they go through property management like the American Realty or United Property Management or Third Coast or all these other companies.
Local.
Yeah, even like Farm.
Yeah, Urban Farm.
Yeah, that one. There's a lot of those companies out there, and all they are is a middleman. It looks like a company owning the place, but it actually is a mom and pop person who just doesn't want to manage their thing. And they cost an arm and a leg or whatever, you know, what word you want to give, because like they require just to participate. I looked into it for myself, and they want so much money up front for maintenance and then out of your rent every month. And for someone like me who wasn't charging $1,300 a month for rent, it didn't make sense. So just be aware of that. We got to be careful about what we're looking at and making judgments about. But the simple answer why we can't do anything to limit the number of properties is that we haven't done a full inventory and study. I don't know who owns what, and it's a free country. So how do we do that in a way that makes sense and is legal?
We have another question. And we're getting to the last bit of our show, so I want to make sure we have time for it. This one comes from Nathan from YouTube. Nathan asks, what are some concrete steps we can take now to help solve our city's housing crisis? The new master plan is great, but the zoning ordinance rewrite isn't supposed to be available for 2 years yet.
So this is really the next hard work that we're going to be doing as a city commission this year. We have to get the city master plan, which, by the way, was phenomenal. I participated in different community meetings. My kids participated. Sounds like this gentleman participated. Like, it's a good, robust plan. And there's pieces in it that are still kind of just like penciled in and sketched in. What does it really mean to be a vibrant city? I don't know. What does it really mean to have balanced mobility? I don't know.
Sounds nice.
It sounds nice. So we got to put those pieces into play. And so the zoning, aligning the master plan with the city strategic plan, with the zoning, and then I would argue there's even more wraparound things that maybe haven't been done in terms of goals, priorities, and things like that. That's why it takes 2 years. That's why they say it won't be revealed for 2 years, because there's all these different processes, the planning commission and things like that. But on this front, and also back to some of the housing issues that people were bringing up, we have something brand new in Grand Rapids that we haven't talked about yet, and that's the land bank. And it is just in the process of really being established. It was voted on and approved last fall. We've got a temporary board in place. I say temporary because they kind of ad hoc included the same people that do the Brownfield Authority. And there's a little bit of a movement that we would like to see possibly a different board set up specifically for land bank, because land bank's a little different than Brownfield. But the two are kind of similar. And as far as I know, this past weekend was the deadline that whatever properties the state was holding would be coming to the land bank right here around the 1st of February. So we may be owning property this week for the city to say, listen, This is something we now own. We can now sell to the right developer for the right project for the right price. The city gets to make money, put that back into affordable housing or more property or whatever. So that all has to be put together. The master plan is just the outline. We now get to fill in all the details and color it in.
You think you can handle one more question?
Sure, I can do it. I'll do it
Great.
quick.
This one's from Faust on YouTube. What are your thoughts on making Grand Rapids more friendly to ... pedestrians and cyclists? The protected bike path on Turner is a great start. Are there any others in the works that you can share?
So I'm not familiar with what exactly is going on. Again, this is a GR Mobile kind of project, and it's interesting that I'm glad you like the Turner bike path, because there are people who hate it. So the neighbors who live there are not really thrilled with how it divides their road and then walking up and down 2 sets of curb and things. So I think there was some accessibility issues long term. So I think there's ways we can definitely keep doing it better. But I will say this, that I am not speaking out of turn when I say that Mayor LeGrand is all about bikes and all about pedestrians. And so I am sure we are going to be doing a lot under his leadership to make sure that we have a bikeable, walkable neighborhoods, streets, and we need to continue to think about safety. I think public safety, and if I can say one thing to all of us residents out there who have cars, please slow down. Please slow down. I catch myself. We got to slow down, and we got to look for people. My own child last winter at the end of January was hit by a car crossing the street to school. Luckily, she's walking, talking, and everything, has only minor vertebrae injury, but let's remember that we're all here in this community together. So thank you.
Definitely. Well, we're just about out of time. I want to say thank you for coming on our show and giving us a lot of insight into the First Ward and the work that you've been doing last month.
It's a lot of fun being here. I hope I get to come back.
Of course. And thank you to all of you for tuning in and sending in your questions. Don't forget, you can always watch rebroadcasts throughout February on cable GRTV's Channel 25 or the GRTV YouTube page. See you next month, Grand Rapids.